One of the most infuriating moments in BF6 is when you see an enemy first, you fire first, yet you're the one who dies. Before you blame your aim, you need to understand that it might not even be your fault. While you're fighting the enemy, your own game is fighting you, hitting you with input lag, distracting you with cinematic fluff, and cluttering your screen with objective and team icons from the other side of the map. The difference between a good player and an unstoppable one is their settings. This isn't another guide with generic strategies, this is a complete technical overhaul. We're going to strip out every setting that holds you back and build a configuration for maximum clarity, responsiveness, and auditory precision. By the end of this video, you'll have the cleanest image, the lowest input lag, and the sharpest audio possible. You'll finally be in complete control. So let's get into it. First, let's jump into your video and camera settings, which is basically how you see the world around you. Let's talk about your field of view, which is going to be one of the most important settings. Setting this to anything around 100 or 110 is going to give you a nice view of your surroundings without distorting targets near the edge of your screen or making enemies too small towards the middle of your screen. You could obviously crank the FOV all the way up to 120, but the fisheye type effect can make it pretty hard to get used to. For the vehicle third-person FOV, I like to crank it all the way up to 83 just so I can see if any enemy engineers are trying to sneak up behind me while I'm in a vehicle. For your weapon FOV, you'll want to set it to wide to make your weapon appear smaller, which is going to make it way easier to see to the left and right of your weapon while you're in ADS. And when it comes to weapon and world motion blur, you're going to want to turn it completely off. This is going to make it a lot easier to see your surroundings as you're rounding corners or you're quickly looking around an area. You're also going to want to turn off camera bobbing to reduce the amount of movement you'll see while sprinting around. And you're going to want to turn chromatic aberration, vignette, and film grain completely off. These are great settings if you want the game to look more visually appealing, but they're going to make visibility a lot worse. For your display settings, set the full screen mode to borderless or full screen. They look the same, but borderless is going to let you tab out of the game without it minimizing, but it does come with a very slight increase to latency, so I'll leave the choice up to you. VSync is another setting that'll be up to how you like to play. VSync is going to sync the game's frame rate with your display's refresh rate to prevent screen tearing, but usually you won't get any screen tearing unless your PC can run way more FPS than your display can handle. For the most important part, getting as much performance as possible. Head into your graphics quality settings and set everything to low. Set shadow filtering to PCF, and turn screen space reflections and screen space AO off to make sure you're squeezing out every possible frame. Then head over to your advanced settings and make sure your fixed resolution scale is set to 100 so the in-game resolution matches your display's resolution. Turn off the in-game frame limiter and set your menu frame rate limiter to your display's refresh rate. Usually I would recommend turning the menu frame rate as low as possible, but the firing range actually uses the in-menu frame rate, which is honestly kind of stupid in my opinion. And it makes it harder to get a proper feel of your weapon builds if the frame rate is lower. Make sure you have the dynamic resolution scale off, low latency on, and anti-aliasing off. I personally have DLSS on and I have it set to ultra performance to get as many frames as possible, but this is another setting that I'll leave up to you. I personally think it makes the game look a bit sharper, but it can be different on a player-to-player basis. Other than that, I have frame generation and future frame rendering turned off, and I have the performance overlay set to simple. Frame generation will lead to ghosting, and future frame rendering trades input latency for visual smoothness, but you can decide whether or not these options are worth using for your setup. Now let's talk about audio. Currently the audio is terrible. Tanks can sneak up on you without being heard, and footstep audio is way too inconsistent. There's nothing you can really do to improve vehicle audio, but what I've done to improve footstep audio is increasing the 2 kHz audio range in SteelSeries GG. I know it's just another piece of bloatware, but as of now, it's more than worth using until the devs can get the audio under control. As for the in-game audio, you'll want to set the master and effects volume as high as possible without killing your eardrums. Turn the in-game music as low as you want, preferably down to 0, and make sure your sound system is set to headphones and the audio mix is set to the default mix or high dynamics. And if tinnitus affects you, make sure to turn the SFX volume completely off, and set the relief frequency to whatever helps you the most. And finally, let's tune up your HUD. For your minimap, you'll want to set the size to medium or large with a 90% background opacity. Set the cone opacity to 25% or more, and set the edge opacity to 45% or more. Your minimap is your best friend when it comes to figuring out what's going on around you, so making sure you can easily read your minimap is going to be super important. You can either have map rotation on or off. This setting makes it so either your map moves with your icon, or your icon is the only thing moving on the map as you turn around. You'll also want interior zoom turned off, but interior zoom is honestly up to your preference. When it comes to view distance, I left it with its default, but you can increase or decrease the ranges based on what your needs are. For the compass, I left everything in its default state, but for the crosshair, I set the opacity and intensity to 100%, with the color set to white and the thickness set to thick. You can also set the color to a bright red, pink, or green so it easily stands out in any situation, but that's also something that I'll leave up to you. As for the reticle color, I left mine on red because I find that it stands out in any type of lighting, but it's important that you use a color that's easily distinguishable in any situation. So using a bright red, green, or orange will be your best bet. As for hit markers, you'll want to set the opacity to 100% and the intensity to at least 60%. And the colors you can set to whatever you want. I set the kill color and armor colors to a slightly brighter color, but this is also preference. But make sure that you also have the armor broken indicator turned on if you play Red Sec. If you have the hit indicator numbers turned on, you'll want to make sure that the numbers don't hinder your visibility when you're in a gunfight. I'd recommend setting it to 50% or 40% at the least. Make sure that the number size is set to small or whatever you can easily read, and set the horizontal offset to 5 and the vertical offset to 60. These offsets will put the numbers right at the edge of your scope on the left side, but you could also set your horizontal offset to 50 and your vertical offset to 100, which will put the damage numbers under your sight. Also, make sure that the horizontal HUD padding is set to 0, your soldier and vehicle overlays are on, the friendly target soldier outlines are on, and the SOVIS filter is turned on. The outlines on targeted soldiers is going to appear when you ping down teammates so it's easier to find them, and your SOVIS filter is going to toggle between realistic soldier lighting, which tends to make soldiers blend into the environment when the SOVIS filter is turned off. In the advanced settings, you'll want the kill feed set to all so you can get information from anywhere around the map. You can keep kill feed icons turned on or off. This setting just changes the weapon icons in the kill feed to the names of the weapons instead. As for ping notifications, you can also keep these on or off based on your preference. This will just help tell if your teammates are pinging an enemy's location. You can also do whatever you want with the world log, squad list, vehicle HUD, and icons and indicators, but when it comes to the objective and friendly icons, you'll want to set the objective, friendly, and squad icons scale to around 100%. I like to keep the objective icon opacity set to 70% so I can still see through it to find enemy players, but I have the zoomed opacity set to 5% so the icons completely disappear when in ADS. And the occluded opacity set to 15% so they aren't in the way if I'm not near a certain objective. When it comes to friendly and squad icons, you'll want to set these to be the exact same. For the icon scale, you'll want the icon set to 100 at the least. For the opacity, just leave it set to 100, and set the zoomed opacity as low as possible without losing visibility of the icons while in ADS. If it's too low, then you're gonna have a hard time differentiating teammates and enemies while in ADS. I like to set mine around 25%. For revive icons, keep the scale and base opacity set to 100%, and turn the zoomed opacity all the way down to 5 or 0. For revive icons, keep the scale and base opacity set to 100, and turn the zoomed opacity all the way down to 5% or 0, so they aren't getting in the way during a gunfight. For enemy icons, you'll want to keep everything set to 100 so you can easily see who you're shooting at. And for neutral icons, keep the scale and opacity set to 100, and set the zoomed opacity to 5 or 0. And set the zoomed opacity to 5 or 0. I've left everything else in its default state, but you could obviously mess around with these and find out what works best for you. Next up is going to be your control settings. I won't tell you which sensitivity or keybinds you should be using. Those are going to be completely up to you. I'd recommend figuring out if using a 1-to-1 sensitivity is for you, or if you have an easier time aiming with a high hipfire sensitivity and a lower ADS sensitivity. But if you're having trouble finding the right sensitivity in BF6, I'd recommend finding a game where you have your sensitivity locked in, and using a sensitivity converter website to convert that game's sensitivity to BF6. In my experience, GamingSmart.com has the most accurate conversions, and they don't try paywalling any important information from you. But there are tons of websites you can use to find your perfect sensitivity. One thing I can tell you is to make sure you have raw input turned on. This setting is going to make sure the game is getting pure, unfiltered data from your mouse without any Windows acceleration getting in the way. For controller players, you'll want to set your center dead zones as low as possible without getting any stick drift. And you'll want to set your max input threshold up to 100%. For your aim assist sensitivity, you'll want it set to around 80 or 90%, but preferably, you'll want it low enough that it isn't yanking your crosshair around if another enemy runs past whoever you're shooting at. So that's about it for this video. If this guide helped you, then consider hitting that like button to keep up with more guides for Battlefield 6. So hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out. You can also join my Discord if you're looking for more people to squad up with, and I have all the builds I like to use posted up there. It's obviously free to join, and I'd love to have you around. And also, memberships are live for the channel, so if you're a longtime viewer and you want to support the channel, now you have the opportunity, but you don't have to if you don't want to. I also stream multiple times a week on this channel, so be sure to stop by. Besides that, I'll see you in the next video.